Greeting, this is Father Michael with our word of the week. This week's word is assiduous. The word itself comes from the Latin, meaning to be seated or rooted. A common synonyms for this are steadfastness or persevering, to persevere. Now, in today's gospel, we have the third installment of what I like to call colloquially the bad guy trilogy. That is, Jesus for 3 weeks tells parables where he seems to hold up someone who does something kind of naughty or something not good and lifts up bad behavior as a kind of symbol of a parable. We had a couple of weeks ago the person who was the sly steward who knew he was going to get sacked, he'd be fired, and so ended up cheating his master out of money so that once he was fired, he'd find perhaps a sympathetic audience or others to take him in. We had then the story, the parable of the person who late at night was asking for food stuff, and the person had just thrown an all-night party and he couldn't bother to get up. And then this week we have the unjust judge, the judge who say, I don't fear God or man. In other words, he's a judge that's totally self-consumed. You can't be a good judge unless there is a sense of justice, of equilibrium. It says, I'm a judge for myself. Can there be a worse kind of judge, honestly? Absolutely not. And he holds up this judge as being someone who can be persuaded by who? The persistent widow who keeps knocking and knocking and knocking. Now you say, what are we doing? Are we promoting unjust judgments, people in places of authority where they can do bad behavior? Absolutely not. This parable is not about the bad behavior, but by showing a contrast that even those who practice bad behavior or don't exceed in virtue recognize some particular kind of goodness. In this case, the goodness of being assiduous in prayer and being persevering in prayer. This widow, and notice, especially in ancient Near Eastern cultures, widows have no rights. They have no one to provide for them. They're on the complete outside of society and literally have to struggle to make ends meet. And here Jesus is saying, be like that widow. Recognize when it comes to your spiritual life, you're on the outside. Even if you think you're doing all the covenantal things, even if you think you're doing all kinds of good works for other people, it's nice, but you're not earning your salvation. You're not indeed racking up credit points with God in some celestial scoreboard. On the contrary, we are called again and again and again and again and again to persevere, to be assiduous in prayer, to keep praying. And why? Well, we all have the experience of praying and it doesn't seem to work. It doesn't seem that God cares. And that's not the surprising thing. It should be surprising that in a sense God answers it all. I mean, after all, we're not the center of the universe. We can't be the most precious thing or the most important thing when it comes to world events, our little problems, our little intentions and so forth. And so why do we expect that our intention, our need somehow is going to rise to the level of God's immediate response? But it does. And God says you need to pray like that. Pray as if it is the most important thing, because to me, you are special. You are the apple of my eye. In order to really understand this, we have to come to that challenging last phrase. Jesus gives this parable of the persistent widow, the one who is assiduous in prayer, but he makes a kind of challenging rhetorical statement at the end. He says, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? You got to scratch your head. He's like, we were just talking about prayer. What is he talking about faith on the earth? What he's saying is, after his resurrection and ascension, there'll be a time when he's no longer physically present, and it will take faith in order to truly see how God cares for his people through his community, through the church. And in that time, there is a possibility that we could lose faith, that we could stop asking, stop knocking, stop seeking. Why? Because it doesn't seem like God cares. And that is the question Jesus says. When I come back again, will anyone be asking? Will anyone be praying? Will anyone still be seeking me? As if I could come again, and you know what? It wouldn't make a difference because no one would be expecting me. No one would be searching for me. No one would be asking. We're called then in this gospel to be assiduous in prayer, to never give up when it comes to asking again and again and again, like the widow, to know that everything we have comes from the bounty of the Lord, to know that we are specially and particularly loved and cared for, even if it doesn't seem like it. Why? The very act of praying, the very assiduousness of prayer is what opens our heart to receive his goodness. Let us be champions of perseverance. Let us be assiduous in our prayer life. Let us indeed show the Lord that when he comes, we will be his people of faith. Amen. Amen. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Please like, subscribe, comment, interact with us. Together here at St. Dominic's, we want to continue to radiate the joy of the gospel in the heart of the city. Shine with the Lord's love. Amen. Amen.